Well, hello, everybody. Wow, we are court hopping today. Right now, we are getting ready to hop on to the Karen Swift murder trial, where her husband, David Swift, her husband, David, is on trial for her murder. We are entering in the middle of day three. So I'm going to say, let's just hop on in because we only have an hour and I want to try and get in as much as I can. Okay, here we go. And the volume is really low for this court, so I've got it ganged up as much as I can. So you'll have to turn it up on your end, okay?
I'm gonna go ahead and tell the jury what our schedule is, okay?
Maybe this is day four, not day three.
All right.
It is day four. I gotta edit that.
All right, let's be seated. Good afternoon, you all. I would ask you ordinarily if there were any difficulties encountered during lunch, but I'm told that there was a slight difficulty encountered, and you all perceived that you were being filmed by a media representative while some of you were maybe outside or on your way back in. I need to tell you I've taken care of the problem, and the entity involved is being told about it. I've talked personally with the cameraman, and the media entity is going to be involved. They're going to be told about the incident and warned that kind of behavior that should not be broadcast there. If any of us catch it on the news, the gentleman knows what's going to happen at that point. So thank you very much for reporting that. Other than that incident, were there any difficulties during lunchtime? And I hope, is everybody feeling all right this afternoon? Let me tell you one other thing. We've made good progress today, and we talked about early on about whether we would need to convene on Saturday. We've decided to take Saturday and Sunday off there. So when we finish this afternoon, you all go home, and then you'll come back, and I'll remind you again late in the afternoon. I think we're going to try to start at 8 o'clock on Monday morning. 8 o'clock. It's a little bit early to try to get everything in and keep ourselves on schedule. And I hope that's okay with you all there. I kind of made that what sometimes we call, I just made a management decision. But it was with the input of the lawyers, and they wanted to be considerate of you all having a weekend as well. And so the decision was made based on that. Okay. And thank them as well. All right, we ready? Oh, okay. Call you next week.
I've got to get that captioning up on here, y'all. I have to do live captioning for this particular one. I can't otherwise.
Two steps. There you go.
Oh, he's back again?
Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give to be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
May be seated.
You sit in that chair, sir. Get your hand on. Yes, sir.
Okay. Yes. Okay, good. Okay. Yes. Okay.
Good afternoon, sir. You're Kerry Smith?
Yes, I am.
Okay, and you're a retired physical therapist?
Yes, I am.
Okay, did you ever have the occasion to treat the defendant, David Swift, as a patient?
Yes, I treated him on 2 different occasions.
Okay. First, sir, let's delve back into your background. What education did you receive to practice your profession?
Well, I graduated in 1973 at the University of Tennessee with a bachelor's degree in physical therapy. I worked for a period of 40 years and retired my license in 2014.
Wait, didn't we already see him?
In a number of states, haven't you?
Yes, I have.
Okay, tell us what states you've been licensed as a physical therapist.
I was licensed in Tennessee, Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Nevada.
And so between those years you described, after graduation until your retirement a few years ago, were you actively engaged in the profession of being a physical therapist?
Yes.
Okay. And just so the jury understands, describe what a physical therapist does.
Physical therapy is a science that began associating with the medical establishment, that is doctors, and basically they needed a way to treat individuals who had injuries or different ailments physically. They needed a way to exercise them. They needed a way to utilize ultrasound and light, heat, cold, electricity. And they needed a way to habilitate and rehabilitate them. That is to teach maybe young individuals who've never done it.
Wait a minute, this sounds identical.
How to do it. And those who have had an activity or been able to do it and then were injured to re-educate them in how to do it.
Okay. While you were practicing physical therapy, did you ever receive any postgraduate education?
Yes, I had some coursework at Northwestern University in Chicago, primarily on the spine and on prosthetics for the lower extremities. And I had some coursework at Eastern Kentucky University.
I just may have
in
seen it.
ergonomics.
Okay. And as part of your holding a license in physical therapy, were you required to obtain continuing education credits to keep your license?
Yes, each state has different requirements, but I have taken courses in San Francisco, San Diego, Phoenix, Las Vegas, Pittsburgh, Atlanta. Seems like it's one, oh yes, Nashville at Belmont.
Can't get Nashville.
Mhm.
Were you, excuse me, have you ever testified as an expert in any court?
Yes, I have.
Would you tell the jury about that?
Yes, I testified for a patient in a suit in which he was suing an insurance company. And I basically presented his situation and my opinion on it to the court.
And were you declared an expert in that case?
I was declared an expert.
Tender witness or what? I asked that the witness be declared an expert in the field of physical therapy.
Court accepts Mr. Smith as an expert in the field of the science of physical therapy.
All right, Mr. Smith, you stated briefly that you treated defendant David Swift on 2 occasions. Do you recall when the first occasion was?
Yes, the first occasion was, I believe it began around June 8th in 2011. Mr. Swift had an accident in which he injured his left knee region and was referred by the physician to physical therapy.
Do you recall the nature of the surgery that he had?
Yes, I do. His surgery was a repair to the quad tendon.
Would you explain to the jury what a quad tendon is?
A quad tendon is a tendon that is above the kneecap or the bone on your front of your knee. And the quad tendon is right above it, and it communicates with the patellar tendon, and the action is to lift the leg and extend it straight.
Okay. You know the date? Okay, you told me, you believe it was around June 8th.
I believe that was when we began to see him, but the surgery was actually 4/25, I believe. 4/25, the surgery, his injury was the day before, 4/24.
Okay. What types of treatment did you provide Mr. Swift when you were?
Well, we were primarily using range of motion, exercise, and isometric and isotonic exercise. And isometric exercise is exercise where the end of what you are working on is moving and the front part of it is not. And isometric exercise is you're just creating tension within the muscle without movement of the end or the proximal end.
And with a patellar tendon repair, how are those exercises helpful? And what's the goal of those exercises?
The goal of those exercises is basically to strengthen the quadriceps and the hamstring region. And the way that helps is you need those muscles to gain knee function and to lift the foot and the lower part of the extremity.
Okay, and were you successful in your treatment? in your opinion?
In my opinion, it was successful to a point. I do not think there was complete success there because when he left during the June period, he still had a limited range of motion, but it had improved quite a bit from about 10 to 70 to about 5 to 115.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask. Did you give him a final assessment at that time?
Yes.
Okay, do you recall what your assessment was?
Well, my assessment was that he was progressing, his range of motion was progressing, his strength was increasing, and that he was ambulating. He was able to step up a 4-inch step.
Okay, when you say 5 to 115, can you explain to the jury what you mean by that?
Okay. Pretend this is a leg. The leg, this is a knee, all right?
I'm surprised he's not standing up.
Go to 0 degrees. That is straight out. And it will bend in most people ultimately to about 135, 140 degrees. Now, there are individuals who can get what we call a recurvatum, that is the lower part extends higher. And there are individuals who can come back as far as 155, 160 degrees.
That used to
They
be
don't have
me.
much flesh in there, and they're very loose around their joints. A typical person of that type of nature would be a person like Michael Jackson, who made all those moves. How did he do it? He was a very loose person in his muscle and connective tissue structure. Dave had been injured, and 5 degrees is about there as opposed to there. And 115 degrees, this would be 90, 115 would be back here. 135, all the way back. Now that is in the knee, translating this to the knee.
Okay. Do you remember whether or not you gave him a quad strength rating when he was discharged?
I believe his quads, when he was discharged, were, I believe, 3.5 on the quad, and no, I believe at that time it was probably 2.5.
Okay.
And on his hamstring would have been a 2.5.
Okay. What does the term ambulatory unassisted mean?
Ambulatory unassisted means you walk without anybody holding to you.
Okay. And then did you rate Mr. Liff as ambulatory unassisted?
Yes, using a knee immobilizer.
Okay.
And that is called a KO.
Okay. When you discharged him, was he given follow-up exercises to do at home?
Oh, yes. Almost every visit was given exercises to be followed at home. And David was a very good pupil, and he seemed to follow his exercises. He seemed to progress, and he seemed to understand what he wanted to do. I will say this. He was kind of a pusher. He wanted to go a little bit beyond, what he was doing.
Okay. So after you discharged him there in June, did you have the occasion to treat him again later?
Yes.
Do you recall the circumstances of that?
Yes. Apparently around 10:25, I believe, he was working, and at work he made a step and got a pain in the leg, probably from twisting the knee, and almost fell.
Okay. And how did he come back? Did he seek you out himself, or was there a referral from a physician?
No, I think he probably saw the plant medical person and was referred to Dr. Joseph Yao in Blytheville, Arkansas.
And did Dr. Yao refer him to you?
Yes, Dr. Yao referred him to our clinic. And in fact, I communicated directly with Dr. Yao. We talked about the case. I told him what had been done previously, and he gave me instructions.
When the defendant came back in the second time, did he fill out any questionnaire prior to his treatment beginning?
Yes, he did.
Okay, and what's the purpose of that questionnaire?
Well, it's a thing that we give to individuals who have knee problems or who have had injury like that, a lower extremity functional test.
Okay.
And its purpose is to give the therapist a profile for a baseline for exercise.
Mr. Smith, the bailiff's going to hand you a document. I'm going to see if you can recognize it.
No. I cannot see it, but it appears to be, there are 20 items on there?
Yes, sir.
And is there a 0 to 4 ranking on there? It would be at the top.
Just a second, beg your pardon? I'm not opposed, certainly not
Okay.
opposed to that.
Let me bring it back to the office.
Thank
Read
you.
it to him.
I appreciate it.
Okay. Do you have a problem if I go through and? Yeah, he just did. Mr. Smith, were you able to see this enough to recognize it as the lower extremity function scale?
Well, yes, the form is the lower extremity functional scale form. It should down at the bottom have David Swift, and I should have signed off KHS or whatever, KS or.
And would this have been dated November of 2011?
Yes.
All right. Mr. Smith, I'm going to read the answers that were reported by Mr. Swift and ask if, when I finish, ask if that sounds like what you recall him reporting to you prior to beginning therapy. Is that okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The first activity that's listed is any of your usual, the preface at the very top says, today, do you or would you have any difficulty with? And then there's 20 items there. Number one is any of your usual work, housework or school activities.
Yes. And what did he rate that?
He rated quite a bit of difficulty.
Right. So it should have been rated a 1.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay.
Can I keep going? Just go? and then-
You just keep going.
Right,
Yes,
and
that's
then and
good.
have you make comment when I'm finished? Is
Yes,
that okay?
that's perfectly fine.
Okay. Number two is your usual hobbies, recreational or sporting activities. Mr. Swift circled again 1, which is quite a bit of difficulty.
Yes.
The next one, number 3, is getting into or out of the bath. Mr. Swift rated that a 2, which is moderate difficulty.
Yes.
Number 4 is walking between rooms. And again, Mr. Swift rated that a number 2, moderate difficulty.
Yes.
Number 5 is putting on your shoes or socks. And again, Mr. Swift rated that a 2, moderate difficulty.
Yes.
Number 6 is squatting. He rated that a 1, quite a bit of difficulty.
Yes.
Number 7 is lifting an object like a bag of groceries from the floor. Mr. Swift rated that a 1, quite a bit of difficulty.
Yes.
Number 8 is performing light activities around your home. Mr. Swift rated that a 2, moderate difficulty.
Yes.
Number 10 is, no, excuse me, I skipped one. Number 9 is performing heavy activities around your home. Mr. Swift rated that a 1, quite a bit of difficulty.
Yes.
Number 10 is getting into or out of a car. Mr. Swift rated that 2, moderate difficulty.
Yes.
Number 11 is walking 2 blocks. Mr. Swift rated that as 0, extreme difficulty or unable to perform activity.
Yes.
Number 12 is walking a mile. Mr. Swift also rated that as 0, extreme difficulty or unable to perform activity.
Yes.
Number 13 is going up or down 10 stairs, about 1 flight of stairs. Mr. Swift rated that a 1, quite a bit of difficulty.
Yes.
Number 14 is standing for 1 hour. Mr. Swift rated that as 0, extreme difficulty or unable to perform activity.
Right.
Number 15 is sitting for 1 hour.
But yet he can help bale hay.
Moderate difficulty.
Right.
Number 16, Mr. Swift, the activity is run on even ground. Mr. Swift reported that as a 0, extreme difficulty.
Right.
Number 17 is running on uneven ground. He also rated that as 0,
Yes.
extreme difficulty. Number 18 is making sharp turns while run fast, also a 0, extreme difficulty.
Right.
Number 19, hopping is a 0,
Yes.
extreme difficulty. And then number 20, the last one is rolling over in bed. He rated a 2, moderate degree of difficulty.
Yes. That is what David Swift marked.
Okay.
Now, we scored this, and his score was 20 over 80.
Yes.
Now you go, why 80? Well, the top you could get is no difficulty, which is 4. 4 times 20 is 80. He marked no higher than 2. So they were either 0s, 1s, or 2s, which is through a moderate degree of difficulty. There is also a 3, which is a bit of difficulty, and there is a 4, which is no difficulty. So the lower you score, the more that indicates that you have a problem in the lower extremity. And if you want to refer to specific activities, we can concentrate on activities that he has the difficulty with. But in his case, almost all of them had some
Poke
difficulty.
myself
So
with the needle.
basically, it was what we viewed as a strengthening problem and a range of motion mobility problem, and we tried to treat those things.
Okay, and the date on the bottom of that is November 16th, as already been pointed out. Did Mr. Swift fill that out prior to being treated for the first time that day?
I would say probably not, or if he did fill it out, probably lost in the record keeping or whatever, because we were not using those forms on every patient every time.
Okay.
So we might go and then we'd use the form, and it is a good way to document for insurance.
Okay. Do you remember us going over your treatment notes on Mr. Swift?
Yes.
Wow, y'all. Thanks for joining. I'm going to speed him up.
Judge, with your permission, the defense and I have agreed to ask Mr. Smith about his treatment notes on the first.
If
time
you
he
find
treated
it's too fast, let me know in the comments and I'll slow it back
Otherwise, we could spend
down.
a long time asking about every row. Okay, Mr. Smith, I'm going to ask you some questions about you treated. I have a note, a treatment note. It's a spreadsheet of handwritten numbers. There's exercises written into the left, and then I believe your initials all on the top.
Yes.
You recall going over that with me?
Yes.
Okay, and did that seem like your recollection refreshed when we talked about it, and we talked about the numbers that were on there?
Oh, yeah. Pretty refreshed. It was a standard procedure for strengthening with the base that he had.
Okay, if I can read some entries for you, and
Yes.
you tell me if you recognize them.
Yes,
Okay, up on the top, it says therapist, and I see the initials KS,
that was me.
okay? And then I see where it says diagnosis, there's an L with a circle around it, quad and patellar tendon repair, 4/24/11,
Yes,
late knee or late effect L knee pain.
yes,
Is that a refresher memory about the,
yes.
okay, does it sound like this was,
Yeah, that L is left.
okay,
All right, medical terminology.
right.
Yep.
And then the next line is manual therapy, and again, it just says KS.
Yep.
Now, if you, and what I'm inviting you to do is, sir, when I read something out, if you want to comment on what that means or what that meant for the defendant's treatment, would you just tell the jury what you did for him?
Yes.
And I'll stop talking.
Okay.
Okay, so the next line is ultrasound, and it says no.
Yep.
Okay, then there's a line that says E-stim Russian.
Yes,
Can you tell us what that means?
yes. Russian stimulation, it was utilized by the Russians in 1976. They were preparing Olympic athletes and wrestlers, weight men, and they wanted a way to strengthen them without just having to use exercise. So their scientists came up with a way to do it. They would use a medium frequency current of about 2,500 cycles per second, and they would cross those currents and put the stimulation on and then take it off. And they used various different, like maybe 10 seconds on,
10
50 seconds
unit.
off, or 10 seconds on, 10 seconds off. But the stimulation that they were using on those weightlifters and on those strength guys was a very high intensity. And what they found is they were stronger. So,
Did you perform, or did you do those types of things at a lower level with Mr. Swift?
well, definitely with individuals who have pain as a problem, but it's used for weakness. And he particularly showed atrophy in the area of the vastus medialis, which was the inside muscle that tore from the tendon.
No, explain atrophy for the jury if you don't mind.
Yes, atrophy. Muscle has size. The individual muscle cells form a muscle. If you do not use and move the muscle, the individual cells begin to shrink. They get smaller. So you still have pretty much the same number of cells, but they're just getting smaller. And in between comes connective tissue. Connective tissue, it doesn't move. It is a connector, and it's stiffer than the muscle. The muscle has a lot of spring. The connective tissue is stiff. So as you can see in the case of David Swift, his knee had stiffness from being probably in the knee immobilizer after his injury, and he had some range of motion deficit and tightening in the end ranges of his motion.
Okay. Now, the next two are pool and strapping. They're both no.
Yes, a pool, that was suggested. David didn't really want to go that route. He felt that his time would be better used in the other modes of strengthening.
Okay. Now,
Pool is
set of
awesome.
repetitions I see on there is
I've
one
done
set-
pool therapy for
one set of 10
knee
repetitions
injuries.
At 10
Works
pounds.
well.
No, that is one set of 10 repetitions at 10-second hold.
Oh, okay.
But,
Excuse me.
No, that's okay. That's okay. So in other words, he did one set, he did it 10 times, and he held each one 10 seconds.
Okay. The next one is SLR.
Straight leg raise. Now remember, the quad set is isometric. He's just tightening the muscle, but he's got to hold it 10 seconds. The straight leg raise, he's on his back. He brings his right leg up, and he can put it down on the table, and he takes the other leg and lifts it up about 45, 50 degrees and holds it. And he did that 10 times.
Man, this is bringing back
10-second hold.
memories.
Okay.
Yep.
SAQ.
SAQ, that's a short arc quad lift. The short arc quad, you put a roll under the knee, have him tighten. He lifts the lower part of the leg and brings it down. It's a limited range of motion movement, and he tightens the quadriceps muscle.
Okay. A little bit farther down, and there's some more, I imagine, exercises like those, but I'd like to bring your attention to one. You have an entry called treadmill.
Yes,
You have it written down 1 mph, 10 minutes.
yes,
Okay. Is that just what it sounds like?
yes, it is.
Okay. Did he have any trouble performing that 10-minute walk at 1 mile an hour?
No, I probably had some reduced weight bearing, and that's one reason we're going slow. And as I recall, that was with the knee immobilizer off because he had the rails to hold to.
The next two entries are connected. They are leg press.
Yes,
The first one says 2 legs, 1 set, 20 repetitions, 135.
yes.
Is that 135 pounds?
That's 135 pounds. He is in a sitting position on a unit that slides. He presses and on the plate, and the resistance is the weights. We set the weights, and that's the resistance.
And then the next line is 1 leg, 1 set, 20 repetitions, 75 pounds.
That's right. That was with his left leg.
This injured leg.
Yep.
Okay. After you had him perform these therapies on the first and exercises on the first stage, I feel like you had a pretty good grasp of his physical abilities at that point.
Yes, and let me bring out one other thing that he used.
Sure.
Okay, the seated stepper, the new step.
Yes, sir.
The new step he used for 10 minutes at level 2, which is a low level of resistance, and he's pumping the legs back and forth, back and forth. And the thing about the new stepper is it is isokinetic, meaning no matter how hard he pushes, he's going to get that same level 2 resistance.
Okay. And why did you feel like that was important that we needed to?
Well, I think it was important because endurance is an important factor in strengthening.
And was his ability on that day, did it tell you anything about his endurance?
Well, yes, we usually went from one exercise, short break, maybe most of them 30 seconds a minute, and then to the next exercise. And then once we'd finish, say, the free exercises, we would go to a machine or go to his walking, his gait.
Okay. I'm going to ask you to make these exhibits for your testimony.
All right, that'll be, it's number 24.
And Son Gray, could you retrieve exhibit 8A for me? Well, never mind, I'll just talk to him about it. Mr. Smith,
Yes.
I'm going to change gears on you here just a minute.
Okay,
Are you familiar with the area around Bledsoe Cemetery in Dyer County?
yes, I am.
How are you familiar with that area, sir?
Well, I lived at Bogota, which is right down below that, and that was the old Bogota Cemetery. One of my relatives, my grandfather's sister, was married to one of the Bledsoes and was buried in that cemetery. And I attended a funeral for her son. I believe he lived in Alabama, and he was cremated, and they had to get a special compensation to bury in the cemetery. And he was buried on top of his mother's grave.
Oh,
Yes. So, you remember that.
yes.
Yeah.
I think so. That's not every day you hear that.
No, it was, and it's an old cemetery.
A lot of people do that now.
Up there, but
Not unusual.
The people of that community were related
Maybe
somehow.
new to them.
Familiar with the area where Karen Swift's body was found?
Yes.
Are you familiar with a little, it's not a paved road, but it's like a pathway that cars use back and forth to go from the Bledsoe Cemetery gate to the cross?
Yes.
And do you know how far that little pathway is from where Karen Swift's body was located?
Well, I would say it is probably to the curve, to the curve, I would say across from the cemetery. It's probably maybe 65, 70 feet.
Okay, but if you're on that little pathway,
Yeah, right. In
Go
other
to
words,
the-
if you're going up the hill, off of the road,
yes,
and there is a little pathway up there. It goes up to within about 20 feet of where the body was.
okay. Let's switch gears again. And do you feel like from your treatment of Mr. Swift and then doing physical therapy exercises with him, that you had grasped what his physical abilities were at that time?
Yes, I think so. The only thing that you don't have a grasp of at the time with patients is what is their motivation and what is, their attitude. Because let's face it, when they're in our clinic and they've been sent there, most of the time they're going to be on their best behavior.
Do you have an opinion that as you saw him as a patient on November 16th of 2011, did David Swift possess the physical ability to drag 125 pounds?
I believe he did.
Okay. Do you have an estimate how far he would have been able to do that?
Well, I would say with simplicity, probably between 20, 25 yards.
Is that at a
It'd
time?
be 75 feet.
Was that at a time? If he rested, would he be able to do that again? Or was that?
Oh, he wouldn't do it in one time. No.
So,
It would be a thing of a little energy and then reset, a little energy, reset, a little energy, reset. So he would definitely not have been pulling body at 100 yards or that sort of thing.
okay.
It would have been, if he was close, he had the physical ability to do that.
What you cannot test for, if I'm hearing you correctly, is motor